Sorry for the delay. Okay. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Professor Bruce Hayek, and he will be speaking on pricing for routing and flow control in payment channel networks. Professor Bruce Hayek is a Center for Advanced Study professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Hoef Chair of Engineering, and professor in the Coordinated Science Laboratory at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he has been on the faculty since 1979. He received a BS in mathematics and MS in electrical engineering from the University of Illinois and PhD in electrical engineering from the University of California at Berkeley. Professor Hayek research interests include communication networks, auction theory, stochastic analysis, combinatorial optimization, machine learning, information theory, and bioinformatics. He served as editor-in-chief in IEEE Transactions on Information Theory and as a president of IEEE Information Theory Society. He received the IEEE Kobayashi Award for Computer Communication and the ACM Sigmatrix Achievement Award, and he is a member of US National Academy of Engineering. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming today. So I'd like to talk about these payment channel networks. This is a joint work with Surya Sankagiri. He finished his PhD about 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago. And this work was sort of from his thesis. And it just appeared last month in the transactions, ACM, IEEE transactions on networking. You find the details. So coming here, I'm glad to be visiting ISC, and so this is like the closest networking work I've done, so that's why I decided to talk about that. The first few slides I just added today to try to give a broader context of where payment channels come in within blockchain. So I hope you find that fun. And then after that, I'll get into the work from the paper itself. So I'm going to talk about scaling cryptocurrencies, a brief overview, and then I'll talk about the payment channel networks in particular, our model of the payment channel networks and the optimization objective, how we achieve the objective, and then performance guarantees and some simulations. So scaling cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin, the first major cryptocurrency, is still the largest, as you know, and it's limited to 3 to 7 transactions per second worldwide, and currently costs between 50 cents and $1 per transaction. And it fluctuates. It's gone up to $40 sometimes per transaction. So you wouldn't want to buy a cup of coffee using a Bitcoin, right? So also privacy is limited because the transaction blocks are public. They're on the blockchain. They could just be like IP addresses or numbers. So it's not like people's names are there, but it can still be tracked. I mean, the money can be tracked. So there's a lot of in the sort of the crypto area. There's just a lot of different things going on, and they're competing, and they're still being developed. So one way to increase the speed or privacy or lowering the cost, payment channel networks, which I'll be talking about, and then side channel networks and rollups, I think are competitors with payment channel networks. And these are all kind of developing and competing. It's not clear which ones are going to win out. Maybe it could be some combinations. And then another topic is cryptocurrency exchange. It's like a currency exchange. There's things called bridges. And I'll talk about those very briefly also. Okay, yeah. Pardon? I think it's a congestion cost. The system can just take in 3 to 7 transactions per second. And if there's a lot of, the block sizes are limited, so the miners can only put so many transactions in. You know, every 10 minutes on the average, there's a new set of transactions are mined. And people put in money to get incentivized to get into that block, and so it's like a queue. So yeah, to get really verified, you have to wait an hour. So that's another thing. Yeah. Well, every 10 minutes, another block is added. So in an hour, it should be like 6 blocks deep, which is pretty deep. And so the chance of a fork is pretty small. So, for a cup of coffee, you probably, even 50 cents to $1 per transaction is way too high. So, so payment channel networks is one kind of distributed way to make a less expensive transactions. Side channel networks is another, and then roll-ups is another. So we'll talk about all three of those. And then cryptocurrency exchange happens with bridges, and that's when you've got different, there's all kinds of different tokens out there, and you might have one and you want to get another one. So it's a lot like currency exchange with dollars and rupees and yen and whatnot. So this is a comparison of Lightning and Squid. So Lightning is the payment channel network that's associated with Bitcoin, and Squid is the side channel network that's associated with Bitcoin. So just looking at those two. So I'll be talking more about the Lightning payment. So Lightning transaction size is micro, small transactions. You could use those to buy a cup of coffee. The Liquid is medium to large transactions. Theoretically, it could be up to the whole value of all Bitcoins. So the on-ramps just open a payment channel for the Lightning Network. Here, the Liquid side chain, you swap in Bitcoins for liquid Bitcoins. It's a one-to-one swap. They're pegged together, so you sort of buy into that. And then this is a federation of functionaries who are honest. This is run by a federation of large players. It's not a peer-to-peer thing, and it takes about 2 minutes. Very strong privacy, and you can use single or multi-signatures, hot or cold wallets. The wallets are a way people keep track of their cryptocurrency. So the Lightning payment network, the settlement speed is instantaneously or a second or two. The privacy is strong, but monitoring is possible because there's still a lot of information available in the open. And the trust model is a peer-to-peer trust model. So there's peers, and they need to trust each other. Okay, so that's comparison, these two. And it's not, so they really don't overlap so much because this is like for the micro small transactions, and this is for really large transactions. Think of large banks that want to transfer a lot of currency at once. Hot wallets where you have to be on the internet, or a cold wallet could be a stick that you plug in once in a while. Yeah. All right. Okay, rollups. Rollups take transactions off-chain, process, and bundle them. Okay, so it was developed first for Ethereum. Ethereum has a lot more, smart contracts, so a lot more infrastructure for that. But there are some protocols being developed in Bitcoin that are similar. So the rollups rely on security of the main chain, such as Bitcoin. The main two types of rollups are optimistic rollups and zero-knowledge proof rollups. The optimistic rollups rely on aggregators and verifiers. So these aggregators and verifiers that are usually in Bitcoin, it's the miners are also aggregating the transactions and putting them together and mining a block. But here the idea is to have lots of aggregators out there that are collecting the transactions, and then verifiers that are keeping the aggregators honest. And both the aggregators and verifiers post bonds. So they've got to put money in there, and if they don't follow the rules, they break the rules, and they're going to lose the bonds that they post. That's the idea. And and they'll be making some profit. They have some motivation. So the idea is to have those, and that should be speeding up the Bitcoin. Okay, and then zero knowledge proofs is a similar. There's also aggregators, but they don't need the verifiers, but they use the zero knowledge proofs to get verification. That's what rollups are. Again, these are competing side channels, and the rollups are somewhat competing with the PCN, the payment channel networks. Okay, and then bridges. So bridges, the primary function of bridges is to provide exchange of different types of cryptocurrency. Any kind of currency exchange requires liquidity. Somebody that's willing to buy one currency and give payment to another one, okay, and for some cut. I mean, when you go to the airport and you land and there's all these currency exchanges, it's kind of like that, except it's online. So there's at least 70 different bridges. They're widely available for top 10 cryptocurrencies, not for hundreds of cryptocurrencies. It's, it's hard. So there's some new cryptocurrencies, and it's going to be, you'll have a hard time finding someone that will just convert that into Ethereum or something like that. Then stable coins also provide a cryptocurrency exchange. For example, there's the USDC stablecoin, which is pegged to the US dollar. And that's operated by a central authority, Tether. And they have USDC stablecoins in many of the most popular, largest blockchains. So you could take, there's ERC20 is a type of Ethereum token. The tokens in Ethereum are not all the same. So there's ERC20 token, which is a stable coin token. And then you could get a stable coin token in a different blockchain. And you do that by burn and mint. You would just burn up the Ethereum tokens, like $500 worth, because it's pegged to the dollar. And then the USDC would mint $500 worth of stable tokens in a different currency that they have an arrangement with. So that's okay. And then wrap tokens facilitate currency exchange. That's where you take a token from one blockchain and turn it into an Ethereum token by putting a wrapper around it. But it's like going to the department store and trying to use that currency. They might not take it. They say, this is not the type of Ethereum token we want, because inside of it there's still a different blockchain in there. So again, it requires some liquidity for someone to be willing to exchange that type of a Ethereum token for maybe a stable Ethereum token. So that's a brief overview. Let's put it together today, because I was sort of interested in seeing the bigger picture instead of just focusing in on payment channel networks. Any questions? Pardon?
What prevents the operator from using the Ethereum token which was supposed to be bought?
Yeah, it's just trust. And there's been, I mean, theoretically, this Tether has a certain limited amount of stable coins out there, and they have in their possession that many dollars. Should be equal. But it's a company. It's not a distributed thing. And it's just like a bank. Banks give loans. And, people put money in the savings account, and they have like 10 million or maybe $1 billion worth of savings accounts, and then they loan out the $1 billion. If anybody wants their money back from their savings account, theoretically they've got the money there, and it's the same thing. So yeah, there is some uncertainties or some debate about but it's so far it's probably the most popular. So it's the largest stable coin. Okay, so I'll move on to payment channel networks, which is the main focus of that paper that I talked about. Okay, so payment channel networks are based on payment channels. So a channel is an escrow fund between two parties. So the total amount held is called the channel capacity. So these two parties, they buy Bitcoin. They have it's a Bitcoin based amount of Bitcoin that they put in escrow, which means they can't get it out until they both agree, or until they break the contract. Either one of them can take out the money, but they can only take out their part. So the individual amounts in the channel are called balances. So here there's like these 8 things represent 8 units of wealth, or of escrow fund in between these two parties, A and B. So if A wants to send money to B, he can just send a message that say, okay, I agree that one of my, some of my money will be transferred to you. So it could be the parties can agree to do this, and it's a cryptographically based thing. But they're doing this off the blockchain, and they can do that for weeks, as long as they trust each other, and you can ship this money back and forth. So here, if somebody pays A something, then A sends a message that sort of transfers, makes this balance larger than that one, and then B can send the money onward. Okay, that's one payment channel. So the parties interact by exchanging messages. The balances change while the capacity, which is the total amount of an escrow, remains constant. And a channel can carry transactions indefinitely, given a sufficient balance. And also, if there's transactions going both directions. So you don't run out. If all the transactions are going one way, then they'll have to go back to the blockchain and readjust the balance. Okay. So a channel is an escrow fund. Okay, let's see. Right, and a transaction can flow through multiple channels. So if you have multiple channels, so here we have 2 channels in series. So A can transfer funds to B, and then B can transfer funds to C. Okay, and then the total amount of money or Bitcoin that B has would be constant here, and then some other transactions could be sent back. This is a little bit like 2-sided queues, where you have like Uber and Lyft, where you have drivers and riders coming together. You have to have, if you have things going in one direction, you could run out of on one side or the other. Okay. So here's illustrating a need for dynamic routing. This comes from a paper of Varma and Magulari. This is Sivathiga Magulari. This is actually a paper that got us interested in this topic. They have a paper, Throughput Optimal Routing and Blockchain-Based Payment Systems. So there's A, B, and C, and there's in a cycle. Okay, and A wants to pay B. So A, B, and C are the nodes, and A wants to pay B, B wants to pay C, and C wants to pay A, and there's these networks. Okay, if they take shortest paths and keep doing that, then these tokens will sort of move that way and eventually run out. And the same thing, this will run out, and things will just get stuck. So what you have to do is A could pay B by routing this direction. So you could have like 2/3 of the traffic going counterclockwise and 1/3 of it going clockwise. And then the flows on each of the links would be equal in both directions. And so you could satisfy all the demand. So sending money along the shortest path forever is unsustainable. Switching paths periodically allows nodes to transact forever. There exists routing schemes from this paper that can serve all the demand of a PCN, provided the demand is a circulation. That means if the net flow from each node is 0, then there should be some way to satisfy all the demand. And that's what they had in their paper. We sort of removed that that restraint. We could take arbitrary demand, but then we will have a routing protocol that will maximize the throughput subject to the circulation constraint. So you can't satisfy all of the demand because it has to be a circulation. Okay, and then a need for flow control. So here there's two channels, A, B, and a BC channel. And the red lines denote the demand. So there's demand to send from B directly to A and from B directly to C. And then also two-hop demand from A to C and from C to A. So what happens here? Well, these two demands, if you didn't have the ones on the top, you could do these two forever, because it's balanced. I mean, A sends to C, so you sort of move these here, well, this isn't a good initial condition. If you had some tokens here, you could move those that way. I think this is the stuck position. It looks like B was sending to A and B was sending to C, and these tokens went there, and it got stuck. So nothing can move now, right? So if the tokens were like equally divided, so you had 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and then you shut off B to A and B to C, just didn't use that one, then you could keep supporting transactions from A to C and from C to A. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the title of the talk, has pricing in it, right? Yeah, that's where we're going on. Yep, of course. Yep. So yes, there's going to have to be some flow control, which means you've got to turn off. You can't accept someone. You have to turn things off, and if there's a pricing, if the prices go up high enough, higher than the utility to that flow, then that should turn off. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, these are the two channels that exist. I mean, so A and B, they decided to put money into escrow and to set up this channel, and B and C did, and there's no channel between A and C. Well, they can go back to the blockchain and like restock it. So they could move all of these from here to here, by going to the blockchain. To do that, B would have to pay A on the blockchain to make up for the fact that they're going to change their balance. But the blockchain is slow and expensive. So you want to minimize the number of times. We call that rebalancing. So you could rebalance. So in this case, A and B could rebalance, move all these here, and then C could start sending directly to A. So then these would be moving here, and these would be moving here, and then A could send to C. And as long as the BA and BC stayed off, it would keep going. Yeah.
But you have two other transactions, B to A and B.
Yeah.
So that should be done.
Well, they're kind of like atomic transactions. So, I mean, so if you want to go from here, you'd have to switch these tokens from here to here, and these tokens from here that don't exist to here. If you kind of combine these two and say, okay, we'll route this money halfway here, and then we'll kind of wait and see, and this money gets routed halfway here, maybe you could combine them that way, but usually they want to have, very fast payment. So you want to have atomic things. You want to end-to-end payment.
Somehow that forces a consideration. A and that part is giving another consideration. That part.
Yeah.
Must be reserved to any transaction.
Yeah, I mean, in probability theory, we talk about detailed balance equation. We want detailed balance, and we want to balance over every link so that the transactions in both directions, the flow in both directions should be equal, link by link. And you know, Siva Theta, they said if you have balance at each node for demand, then you can find a route so it's balanced on each link. Okay. So unlocking a deadlock requires channel resets. It's slow and expensive. And preemptively curtailing some transaction requests can lead to optimal serving of the demands. So there's another paper, The Effect of Network Topology on Credit Network Throughput. That's where this example came from. We do some simulation of that example with our protocol later. Okay, so our model of payment channel networks and the optimization objective that we chose, discuss that next. So for us, in the model, a payment channel network is a graph, G, with the vertices V and edges, which are E. And the vertices are the users that want to send payments, and the E, the edges, are the payment channels. And the capacity of a payment channel is CUV. It's a bidirectional. The capacity is bidirectional, but the balances would be on one side or the other side. So each node pair, IJ, could be far apart from each other, where there might not be a channel between them, has a fixed set of paths to transact along. So we use capital Pij, and we'll be using the shortest path algorithm, and it's quite natural to have negative prices. And shortest paths on graphs that have some negative prices, the usual algorithm doesn't work, but if we have a fixed set of paths, if you could just calculate the price for each path, and at least in our simulations, if you just find the shortest and the second shortest and the third shortest path and choose among those, it works pretty well. It works, actually, using just the shortest two paths, it works better than choosing the best out of k paths. Okay, and path information is captured by a routing matrix R. So for a given UV, and we usually assume like U is less than V when we talk about the channel, then if a path goes through that channel from V to U, we put a -1, and it goes from U to V, then it's a +1. So this is a matrix for the path space across the channel space. It tells you how the paths cross the channel. So we assume that transaction requests arrive in discrete time slots at a constant rate. So actually, our model is totally deterministic in the theory part of the paper, although we show in the simulations that's very robust. So in each time slot, there is a transaction request of an amount Aij from source I to destination J. And so this is the N is the set of pairs of users that want to send money at this constant rate. The transaction demand we assume is elastic. This is a lot based on Kelly, Malu, Tan, and Lapsley Low type reasoning for steady state optimal throughput. So we assume the demand is elastic. So if I wants to send J at rate Aij, they'll have a utility of that for that. So if Fij is the total rate that they get, the utility for that is given by this, which we assume to be a concave increasing function. Could be a linear function, in which case we be trying to maximize the sum of all the payments, sum of the values of all the payments going through the network. Assume it's concave differential, non-increasing. Also starts out at 0 without loss of generality, but also the derivative at 0 we assume is finite, which means if the price goes above the value of the derivative, then the I will stop sending to J. If you had a logarithmic thing with an infinite derivative, then no matter how high the price is, they would be leaking in a little bit, and you couldn't like make them shut up by setting the price. However high you set the price, they would keep going. So it's important. The theory requires that assumption. Okay, so the network flow, with every path in the network, we associate a flow, which represents the amount of money sent along that path. So Fijk is the amount of money being sent on path ijk time slot t. And so Fij, the total amount of flow from I to j is the sum over the paths. So we're doing multipath routing here. Okay. And f of t denotes a set of all flows in the network slot t, and a fixed f without a t denotes a stationary flow. Okay. The network state, the state of the network is described by the channel balances. So XUV, so UV is a payment channel, one of the payment channels, denotes the balance of U in channel UV, where we have the convention that U is less than V. And the balance of V would be equal to the channel capacity minus XUV. That would be like XVU. Yes? It just means it doesn't depend on time. So that would be if we, every time unit, we just have the same flow. Be it so yeah, it's just the F without a T on it. So you could have F of T be equal to F for each F. So that would be, you just cover up the T. That would be just Fij of K would be a flow. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So it's like water flow. It's like a fluid model, right? Because stuff's coming in deterministically at a constant rate. And so using that matrix R, the state at time t plus 1, which are the balances at each end of the channel. I mean, the XUVs U is less than V, and then at the other end is CUV minus XUV. Then you can update that by what the balances were at time t minus you look at how much went in versus how much went out to each end of each of the payment channels, and that gives you the new state. Okay, so a flow vector is feasible if if x of t minus rft is less than or equal to c. In other words, you don't want the balances to go negative. If balance goes negative, then we say you can't route that flow. So in each time slot, you need to have a feasible flow. And routing infeasible flow. So what we do is we assume you could route an infeasible flow, but it's expensive. So we want to we don't want to have channel resets. So we show with our algorithm that the number of channel resets is bounded, and we want that to be small. Okay. So the network objective, we want the flows to converge to a stationary flow that maximizes the utility summed over all the users. So there's this utility function I had. It was the Uij of Fij. So if you converge to a stationary flow, you want that flow to be minimizing or maximizing the sum of the utilities. Okay. And also the flow should be sustained indefinitely without perpetually resetting any channel, which means the flow in both directions on every link should be the same. Right, that's what we want. So this is the total utility of the network. The set of feasible flows is this, and F is sustainable if and only if it satisfies the detailed balance constraint RF is equal to 0, so that the balances in each channel would be the same from time slot to time slot. Okay, this is the deterministic for the deterministic setting, and we know that in practice there'd be like Poisson arrivals or something more, and it'd be fluctuating. But for the deterministic model, that's what we want. Yeah. Sure. Right. Yes, that's the network topology. That tells us which links are on each path in each direction. So when we say what the flows are on the different paths, that tells you what the flows are on the links, and that tells you how the balances change. And RF is the change in balances at all the links. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So Cij is the capacity of link ij. We kind of ignore that because we assume that if it's large enough, then there won't ever be any rebalancing with our algorithm. If Cij is small, then there'll be some rebalancing required. But other algorithms look and say, oh, you're getting close to capacity, you should raise the price because you don't want to go over the capacity. And then, which is probably a good thing to do because it's expensive. But in practice, the C's are usually about 100 times larger than the transaction size. And so we found that if we just ignore that and do rebalancing without putting a weight on that, we get good performance. And the good thing about that is we have some invariance that I'll talk about. Pardon? Aij is how much the maximum that user I would want to send to user J per slot. And the amount they actually get is smaller than that. So that's the network utility maximization problem. So this is a concave function that we're maximizing. So it's a nice problem subject to RF equals 0. When you see something, yeah. 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 Yeah, that's true. I mean, because you have to send the C has to be bigger than the AIJs, or maybe the sum of the AIJs through a link, because the amount of fluctuation you'll have for the deterministic model would be roughly the sum of the AIJs for flows going through a particular link. Yeah, that allows you to shut it off, something off. But you can't get convergence because if you want, for our algorithm, the prices converge. And if you didn't have that, the prices wouldn't converge. You'd have to go off to infinity because it's like a leaky faucet, and you like try to turn it tighter and tighter, and there's something still coming out. The prices go to infinity. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, locally it's known as a distributed algorithm. So yeah, I'm not sure what observable means. That mean we assume that the prices are observable. So I didn't talk about prices yet, but the prices will be observable. The prices in the Siva-Theta work are actually the difference in the balances. And one side, they go positive or negative depending on, if one side has more money than this side, then the price going this way would be negative. Would be sort of this balance minus that balance. Yeah, so there is pricing tells something about balances, and that is a concern because for privacy reasons, you would like to hide the amounts of transactions going through. So when you've got prices depending, if they depend too closely on the balances, there's concern about that. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so each, what we'll see is that there'll be prices generated at each of the links. And then those will turn into path prices. And then, so if you're a user and you're faced with these multiple path prices, you'll choose the lowest. Are close, they'll split the traffic between those. And they'll be solving the dual optimization problem. And then so yeah, so the prices will be updated kind of automatically because they'll depend on the imbalance on the links. So like those are updated locally. Those prices have to get to the ends, similar to Kelly Malutan, or in the internet, a role is played by packet dropping in the internet. You know, if there's too much congestion on a link, you drop packets, and then at the end to end, you look at the total blocking probability is, dropping probability is high, then TCP will cut its window in half. So,
are there any penalties on taking a longer or cheaper path?
no, we didn't put that in. No, could be. Although we assume we have a set of paths chosen originally, rather than looking at all possible paths with the minimum cost, and that's partially due to the possibility of negative paths. And if you have a negative cycle, you could have a path with negative infinity cost. Just keep going around that path, and yeah. No, the UIJs are end-to-end things, so that's sort of the happiness that I has presenting to J, whereas the capacities are on links all around. Yeah, the capacity here is, we think, less important. As if it's large enough, then you're not going to have too much rebalancing. So you'll have to have more rebalancing if you have smaller capacity. I'll show in some simulations that if it's really small, then it doesn't work very well. But if the capacity is like 10 times the transaction size, it works fine. And in practice, it's like 100 to 1,000 times larger usually. So that means it beats the Siva-Thiga's algorithm. And also, we'll see in the simulations the amount of rebalancing that goes on, and it also depends on how quickly you can converge, which also depends on step sizes you take. There's going to be a gradient algorithm. Of course, bigger step sizes is going to be noisier, but also more adaptive. Okay, so we obtain a stationary flow that maximizes utility and can be sustained. Okay, so we get, this is the F star. Okay, so how do we achieve this objective? So we call this the detailed balanced transaction or debt control protocol. Okay, so we look at the dual of this optimization problem. So it's maximizing a concave function subject to this linear constraint. That's the primal problem. And then we associate a Lagrange multiplier for each of these constraints. So there'll be one Lagrange multiplier for each channel. Or if you think of it in the opposite direction, then there'll be two, but they'll be negatives of each other. Okay, so the primal problem in terms of Lagrange multiplier is to maximize the minimum over the Lagrange multipliers of this thing. And if RF is not 0, then lambda, this infimum would just make that go to minus infinity. So that's why this is equivalent to the original problem. And then you get the dual by switching the max and the min. So the d of lambda is the max flow of LF lambda. So, what lambda is fixed. That these are the price. These are prices on the links, and for each path you can sum those up. So this is a problem that I talked about before that users can solve once they get the prices. So they get the prices, they can decide how they want to, which paths they want to put the traffic on. So, okay, and then the gradient, if it's not differentiable, there's this thing, but otherwise just think of it as being differentiable. Think of this being the gradient of the dual function is the imbalance. You know, the amount of flow, the difference in flow in and out on a given link is the gradient of the dual. So minimizing that dual will be equivalent to setting the gradient equal to 0, which is equivalent to balancing the flow on each edge. So we use the gradient descent algorithm. So this is just a deterministic algorithm applied. This could be iterations on gradient descent on the dual. So the flow at time t would be a function of the prices presented at time t, and then the prices are updated by some step size multiplier times the amount of imbalance. So the price on a given channel is going to be proportional with the proportionality constant gamma to the total net flow in one direction minus the other direction. So that's a nice invariant that we wanted to preserve, and that's the reason we didn't incorporate the channel capacities, because this is an exact relationship that the prices are equal to the net flow that in one direction minus the other direction over all time. Yep. Pardon? The prices are directional, and they're the negatives of each other. The sum of the prices in the two directions are 0. So then we just get an algorithm. We just interpret these things. They interpret these Lagrange multipliers, channel price declared at the beginning of the slot. The flows respond to the prices by maximizing this Lagrangian, which is maximizing the sum of their utilities minus the prices that they wouldn't need to pay. And some of those prices could be negative. Okay, so that's what this is like, flow computation. Kelly would call this the user problem. Once prices are presented on the links. So you just want to maximize, the user's maximizing their utility minus the prices that they pay, where mu is RT lambda. So mu gives you the price for a path from the price vector for the channels. Okay, so this is a problem that you can solve. It's kind of like a water filling problem, because as you start using more, if you start using put more fluid on one path, then the price for that could go up. So, pardon? Yeah, the user problems separate from user to user because they're each presented with prices on their paths. So the prices are the differences in the flow in both directions, and then the users are responding to that. So each node pair solves that optimization problem simultaneously. So this is that. So this is the total flow that they get minus the prices they get, where these are the path prices. So Fijk is how much flow they put on that path. So they choose. So you choose the path. To solve that, you would choose the path with the minimum price. That'd be routing. And if you've got two of these paths with prices close to each other, then if they had equal one, you could put you split the price, split the flow arbitrarily between those, but we add a regularizer here, a small constant times the sum of the flows. This incentivizes balanced flows. Okay, so if several paths have close to the minimum price, then because of this term, the node would put flow on multiple paths. If the price differ by enough, then this regularizer, since it has a finite derivative here at 0, they would still put all their flow on one path. So actually, at first we tried something like a logarithmic, the usual entropy kind of thing. This is a version of entropy, and this works. The other one wouldn't work for our convergence results. Okay, so the prices. Eta is just a small constant. In a theorem, you'll see it depends on step size that you take in the algorithm when you do the gradient algorithm. So the prices are updated after transactions are executed. So this same gamma we use in the price update. So never mind. Yeah, we've got gamma here and eta there. Forget that. Yeah. So, but there's a relation between gamma and eta. Okay. So each channel's price differential or proportional to net flow through it, I talked about. And because of that, the lambda will also be proportional to x of t minus x of 0, provided there's no resets. We're changing the balance. So in some papers, when people rebalance, then you're getting further away from the capacity, and then your prices change. If your prices depend on how close you are to the capacity, and then you rebalance, then you say, oh, we've got plenty of room to spare, so we're not going to worry about that. But then the same thing happens over again. So it can happen over and over again that you need to rebalance. So what we keep the prices the same. We don't change the prices when there's rebalancing. So the price is going to be the total net flow that went through there. And even if there's rebalancing, we don't like subtract that out. And otherwise, we're going to keep rebalancing. Okay, so protocol performance and the guarantees. Okay, this is all I have about guarantees. So if we assume that these eta ij's are bigger than some constant eta, bigger than 0, would typically be small, and then gamma has to be smaller than the operator norm of this r squared divided by eta. This is probably conservative, but it's a bound. Then the dual cost at lambda t minus the minimum dual minus the we're trying to maximize. I guess we're minimizing the dual cost. Yeah, that's what we're going there. So this is getting close to the minimizer. It's less than the norm, L2 norm of lambda star over 2 gamma t for t bigger than or equal to 1. So we get that. And then lambda t converges to the argmin, the minimum of the dual. And then f of t converges to f star, where f star is the unique solution to the primal problem. So basically, they have convergence. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, F star is a unique, the primal problem. Yeah, F star might be the primal problem with eta in it. Yeah. Pardon? Lambda, okay, lambda double star, what? Why do I have a lambda star and a lambda double star? Yeah, I don't know. Can't remember why we have 2 lambdas. It's possible, but yeah, I have to look at the paper again. So yeah, it converges. In this case, with a deterministic fluid, it's a very fluid model. Okay, and this is a small step size to get this. So we prove this result by establishing strong duality holds between the primal and dual problem. The dual problem has a finite solution, and the dual function is smooth. Okay. So let's move on to some simulations. We have like 4 different things. So this is the cyclic network. Capacities on the channels are 100, and A wants to send 10 units of payment to B. B wants to send 10 minutes to C. C wants to send 10 units to A. And as I said before, to get balance, we really want, in this case, 2/3 of the flow to be going clockwise and 1/3 of the flow to be going counterclockwise, because the counterclockwise flow hits 2 edges. And what happens here? So this is the flow, and it's symmetric. So this shows a short path between a source A and B, and this is the long path. And so and this is without a regularizer here. So things are jumping around. This is the flow, and here's the price. And then we put in the regularizer. Then this is the flow that's going along the short path, which should go to 2/3. So this is like 6.66 and then 3.33 here, a short path. And then the prices for the long path, a short path, go like that. Right. Okay. Pardon? Now the regularizers are on the flows in both directions. Well, the regularizer is, yeah, but for a given user, they look at their flows on all their paths and just the sum of the flows squared times eta, or could be path dependent. Let's see, short path flow. Oh yeah, the price, short path has a negative flow. Let's see, and the long path has, what's the question? Yeah. Yeah, it seems like why aren't you would think that the prices should be going to the same number, right? Let's see. Yeah, this might be, I think this is the flows. I think the prices would be, doesn't look symmetric either. So these prices could be in the 2 directions. What do you think? The price in this direction should be positive, and then price in that direction, it would be negative. Have to think about this more. Yeah. I don't know. We go to the next example. This is one with the starvation in the middle. So those are the capacities. And this is the flow from A to C is blue, and the flow from B to C is the brown one, and that when the price goes up. So what's happening here? Yeah, the prices are going in that direction are going up, and then the prices in that direction would be the negative of those. But then when you go from here, going from here to here, the price would be zero for the long ones. But the prices from B to C would from B to C would be positive, from B to A is positive, but from C to B is negative, equal to the negative of the price from B to A. So so the price for the long ones stays at zero, but the price for the short paths from B to C and B to A increase like that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One short flow, that's double the amount. You're collecting a certain amount, price per flow. But on the long flow, there are totally two flows that contribute to it. So both total value.
Yeah. Yeah, but it should be that. I mean, well. Yeah. Yeah, but I think you would want to be splitting your flow. So I think the total price for the paths should become equal as long as you're using both of them. So I'm not sure what to check what that one means. Okay. Yeah. So that's that one. So this was a 5-node network we did, which I mean, you stare for it a while and try to figure out which flows should be cut off. One obvious one is from E to B. There's a demand here, but B does, it's all zero. B's not sending anything, so that the E to B should be going to zero. And for this simulation, instead of deterministic AIJs, we put in Poisson random variables with mean equal to AIJ. And then for this one, as a demonstration, at this time, we switched the direction of all the arrows. And it shows that, you know, so these were the flow rates, and then there was a switch here, and then they sort of resort them out. So although we designed the protocol, you know, the theory is based on deterministic fluid, it does work well for random traffic and non-constant in time. Because yeah, I mean, yeah, the AIJ, we just switch the direction of the arrows and then let it reach the new equilibrium. I mean, there are different theoretical approaches for this kind of thing, and so for this, where the model is for the long-term steady state, if you know, you take the step sizes to be non-zero, and then you'll get something like this. Some more. So this is with the deterministic flow again, but this is with two different step sizes. So this is like a smaller step size, similar to what's in the theorem. It takes this is from time from 0 to 1,000 iterations, where this is from 0 to 100 iterations, like 10 times faster. And then these are the reset instances for some capacities. So for each channel, each of these little triangles represents a rebalance. Okay, so then when we chose the larger step size to get faster convergence, it's not, we don't really get convergence, still oscillating here, then the amount of rebalancing is a lot smaller. And then the paper of Thiga and Varma, they had a 10-node network with random topology, and they generated, you know, hundreds of them. So we went to their code and we tried our algorithm on their thing. I just have this. So this for their 10-node network, we have a path price threshold, meaning we chose the utility functions to be linear with a certain slope, which we call the path price threshold. So if the price of a path went above that threshold, then with a linear utility, you wouldn't send anything. It'd be all or nothing. So it's either 0 or AIJ with a linear utility. So we put that in because that's what other people did. And also they didn't do rebalancing. So we didn't do any rebalancing either. But we just said if there's not enough capacity for a request, we'll just drop it, and we don't count that in the throughput. So when you look at the amount of transactions served, the value of them, VM is the Varma Magularis, those are the dashed lines. To be fair, their algorithm is designed assuming that there's no acyclic demand. And ours is maximizing the flow utility subject to detailed balance. So these are our algorithm, got higher throughput, and it's pretty flat with respect to the path price threshold. So just in conclusion, a payment channel network cannot support arbitrary demands indefinitely without persistent channel resets. Our algorithm as joint routing and flow control guides the network to a sustainable, stationary, optimal flow. It assumes users respond rationally to channel prices. If a channel's rebalanced, debt does not adjust the channel price. The price is proportional to the long-term imbalance of flow through the channel. So we don't change the price when we rebalance. So revising price update rules. Okay, there's other future work, there's privacy concerns while still doing deadlock avoidance, and then channel incentives. I didn't talk about channel incentives, which are an additional thing that go in the price because you want the channels to get a little bit of rake off. So you charge a little bit more, and there's different models for how those work. But that's it. Thank you for your time. Yeah.
They are optimizing with the price indication.
Yeah.
But somehow it's also the assumption that the prices don't matter. So ultimately they are trying to optimize overall system liquidity.
Yeah, they're price takers. Yeah, so for a small network, they could be strategic and say, if I do this, then the prices are going to change tomorrow that way. Yeah, we didn't take that into account. Yeah, we're assuming price taking behavior here. Yeah, I could say price, assuming they are price taking. Yeah, good point. We imagine large networks where, with micropayments that no one user is really going to have a significant impact on the prices.
I think there are